All right, and welcome into the Fantasy Pros Fantasy Football Podcast. It's the Week 10 reaction episode. I am your host, Seth Woolcock, and vibes are high out here in the state of Pennsylvania tonight. I'm joined by one of the best followers on the internet. He's an orthopedic sports surgeon and our resident fantasy football injury analyst, Dr. Deepak Chona. Happy Sunday, Doc. How are you tonight?
I am doing well, man. Sunday Night Football, Houston Texans, here we come.
Let's go, man. Yeah, it's a big one for you tonight. Hopefully you can pull it off. We're also joined by a man riding the high of a big win by the Pittsburgh Steelers, Scott Bogman. Here we go, pal.
Hey, I love it. You know, Mike Williams, always one of my favorite wide receivers. Definitely didn't doubt him at all, ever. Never a doubt. Love Russell Wilson. That decision was great. I'm on board with everything. No doubts at all. It was awesome. So love getting a big win against Washington. Tough team.
Yeah, and it was a great day of fantasy football, too. Limited injuries once. Deepak, I feel like you've been really busy each and every Sunday. Today felt a little bit better for you. Were you a little more relaxed?
Yeah, I did actually kind of feel that there was definitely less going on, but a couple big names, but nothing too severe.
Yeah, absolutely. Wanted to let everyone know, thank you for watching. We greatly appreciate it. It is week 10, so it's a long time to put up with the three of us. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy this type of content. Plus, subscribe if you're new. It's the easiest way to support us and what we're doing here for the brand. Over the next 60 minutes on the program, you can expect the injury recap with Deepak, plus the game breakdowns for all 11 games played today. And let's jump right into the injuries, gentlemen. Starting with a big one, Dalton Kincaid, Buffalo Bills tight end, second-year sensation. He goes out of this game with an apparent knee injury. Deepak, do you have an initial diagnosis of what this could be for Kincaid and what the projected timeline would be if he's sidelined?
Yeah, so he landed really hard directly on his knee. That kind of makes him suspicious for either a contusion of the knee or a sprain of the PCL. So a little bit uncertain because he did leave and then come back, but was unable to really protect himself, he said. So he checked himself back out. You know, it's a little hard to know. He's probably getting an MRI tomorrow. Then we'll really get a good sense. We're hoping for contusion, and that would be kind of the AJ Brown case where a scary video looked in the end like not too bad.
Okay. What would be worst case scenario, you think?
Worst case scenario would be a PCL sprain. And the reason that's worst case is that it takes an average of about 2 weeks to come back. But then when you do, like we had Puka earlier in the year, it's a little prone to re-injury. So that's kind of the thing, especially if you're a Bills fan looking forward, you really want to hope that this is a simple bone bruise type situation and will recover smoothly.
Okay, Boggs, if Dalton Kincaid is sidelined, is Dawson Knox worth a look, or do you think most of the vacated targets disperse among these wide receivers?
No, I mean, a lot of the wide receivers are hurt, so we'll see if they come back. So I think it is Knox. Knox has always kind of been behind. I mean, at Ole Miss, he was there with like AJ Brown and DK Metcalf and all those guys. So he's behind there. He got drafted, looked like he was in a good spot, and then the Bills drafted Kincaid, but he is definitely an underrated asset. So if Kincaid does need to miss time, you're looking for a tight end. He's not a bad pivot at all.
Okay, Minnesota Vikings running back Aaron Jones. He was having just a sensational day, up over 100 combined yards, before suffering a chest injury that had him carted to the locker room. Deepak, what do you think happened to the veteran, and is it too early for a possible timetable on his return?
So interestingly, he took a big shot to the chest area. It looked like either rib cartilage or potentially, in worst case, rib fracture. They took him to the locker room. He actually came back. So it, in some ways, makes the chance that he had a fracture pretty low. So we would expect him to try to play through this injury going forward since he was able to come back. But typically, you do see a pretty significant production hit for skilled players if they are playing through this. So that could last 2 to 4 weeks, even though would expect this to be a short-term absence, if any absence at all.
Okay, with that being said, Boggs, are you panicking if you have Aaron Jones? Are you picking up Cam Akers, who had 14 touches, Ty Chandler, who had 4 touches in this game? Or do you think you just ride it out with Aaron Jones here, as Deepak said, and probably not going to miss any time or at least not a lot of time?
Yeah, I think he's going to be okay, but I don't mind handcuffing if you have a spot at the end of the bench or whatever. It is definitely Cam Akers now. It was kind of a question a couple weeks ago, but this week when Jones went out, I mean, they shifted right to Cam Akers, and Cam Akers is getting playing time before that as well. So Cam Akers is now the second man in Minnesota for sure.
Okay, so drop Ty Chandler. We can cut ties with him and go ahead and pick up Cam Akers if we need him. All right. Good breakdown there. Let's look at left tackle injury. We don't talk about a lot of offensive line injuries, but Tampa Bay Buccaneers, their stalwart over there on the left side of the line, Tristan Wirfs, he went down with a serious looking knee injury. What do you think happened here to Tampa Bay's big man, Deepak?
Yeah, so they've announced so far that he has an MCL sprain, is what they're calling it. Now, the way the video looked at it suggests at least a moderate severity. So the average on those would be about 2 to 4 weeks for offensive linemen. You have to imagine it's a lot of weight being sort of juggled around there. So with that in mind, I would expect certainly some absence, but not necessarily season ending, which is kind of the initial video was very concerning. So with that in mind, I would expect him to be out for at least a week after the bye, but because their bye is coming up, he may have a chance at missing only that much.
Boggs, does this hurt Baker Mayfield or the running backs Rashad White and Bucky Irving more?
I think it hurts Baker more because Tristan Wirfs was the #1 pass blocking offensive lineman in the NFL before this injury, and that is a pass heavy offense. So it definitely is going to hurt. They'll put an extra tight end probably on that side a bunch, especially if they're facing a tough defensive lineman. Luckily, they're on the bye this week. That might give a little bit of time for Wirfs to recover here, but that is a huge blow for the Tampa Bay offense, no doubt.
Yeah, I'm just glad it's not going to be a season ender. That's always, I feel like, a good sign here. Looking at an injury that is a season-ending injury that I don't think we can look past is Dak Prescott, who is going to be undergoing a season-ending hamstring injury. Deepak, what was different about this hamstring injury that caused it to be a season ender, you think?
Yeah, so basically most of the hamstring strains we talk about are kind of in the mid portion of the muscle, and that area recovers pretty well on its own without any surgical treatment. But Dak Prescott's is actually really right at the top where the hamstring attaches to the bone, and part of it kind of popped off the bone. And so what they're probably going to end up doing is going in and taking that part and reattaching it to the bone, letting that heal. And the outcomes of that are pretty good. And especially for elite athletes, you would expect him by the start of next year to be basically full strength. The downside, though, of course, is the recovery time. It takes usually somewhere in the 4 to 6 month range to return. So, on the one hand, if they were in mid-season and right in the playoff hunt, maybe he tries to play through this type of thing. But in the case where the season's out of hand and you're looking at a more predictable recovery, if you undergo the surgery here, then I think that's kind of the logic that has led him to likely season-ending surgery.
Does this limit his mobility, you think, when he comes back next year, Deepak? We know he's already had some pretty severe injuries to those legs.
Yeah, and I think the ankle was probably going to be more of a limiting factor than the hip, the hamstring here. People tend to recover pretty much most of their explosiveness by the time they return. And the ankle and the hip and him getting a little bit up there in age relative to kind of being mobile, I think those factors have led him over time to decline in his mobility. But I don't necessarily think this will be a drastic shift.
Okay. Boggs, where do you rank CeeDee Lamb rest of season with this news, assuming it's either Cooper Rush or Trey Lance under center?
Yeah, it's tough. Because I thought Cooper was going to be okay, guy with a lot of experience, and he looked miserable. They brought in Trey Lance at the end. It's also a tough opponent. It's also the first week without Dak. So hopefully adjustments will be made. Low-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2. We'd probably have to go in that area. I saw people in the chat saying you got to consider benching him. If you have a decent option, you can consider benching him. But most people, I would think, say don't. It's tough. So I think he'll be better moving forward than he was this week. The whole offense cannot look as bad as it was this week, I feel like. I mean, it was very, very miserable. So hopefully this gets better really quick.
Last injury I have here for you, Deepak. Tyreek Hill is questionable for Monday Night Football with a wrist injury. He missed practice on Friday, and Mike McDaniel said this is a wrist injury that has been, quote, heating up, and the team wanted to give him a chance to, quote, cool it down. What does this injury mean? What do you think this injury truly is? And is there a chance we do see him active on Monday night?
Yeah, it's a good question. They haven't given us a clear indication on diagnosis, but there have been some reports that he's been dealing with this on and off kind of for several weeks now. And the fact that it's flaring up doesn't necessarily bode well because there's not really an opportunity coming for him to rest. Now, with that in mind, his practice progression, meaning DNP times 2, would be very atypical to play on Monday. Tyreek Hill has had a history, a pretty strong one, in fact, of missing practice and still playing and even sometimes playing quite well. So if he's out there, I think he's a high risk of flaring this up at any point in the next coming weeks. If a trade deadline has not passed, then I'm kind of looking at this as an opportunity potentially for him to have a good game and me to ship him off. But on the whole, looking at Monday night, it's very dicey. I would say this truly could go either way.
Boggs, if he is inactive on Monday Night Football and you need someone to pick up and play in his place, who is that person?
I mean, Atwell, maybe. There's just not going to be a lot out there. Maybe if you can flex, Jonnu Smith might have a
OBJ.
Game. I don't want to recommend OBJ, but I mean, he might be out there for a decent amount of snaps. It just depends on how deep your league is, how far down the ladder you have to go. So it's tough. I would probably think that he doesn't play since they announced this on Friday and then they're saying he's questionable. They're playing on Monday, which is one less day to rest for Sunday next week. I would say it's probably less than 50% that he plays, but we'll see.
Yeah. Any other questions from you, Boggs, to Deepak?
What about some of these? Some guys left and came back. Tyrone Tracy left and came back. Najee left and came back. Brian Robinson didn't play today. Tell me about some of these running backs, Deepak.
Yeah, so Tracy I have less concern because he was able to come back and played for a reasonable amount after. With Najee, his video actually looks like he sustained a mild high ankle there. So if you look at it, yes, he did come back. He kind of went down and the ankle bent inwards. Some of these swell up kind of more in the coming days. So you may see him limited in practice. And I wouldn't bank on his next week availability just yet, meaning that I'm not saying he's going to be out, but I think it's worth monitoring because he may be limited for some time here. And then with Brian Robinson, he went from practicing and being a true game time decision to then not playing last week and then missing this week again. So the whole situation kind of screams setback to me. So I would say when you're having a hamstring injury and he's already had a couple injuries earlier this year, you really look at this as a high risk type of situation. So Brian Robinson, I'm not highly optimistic that he's coming back this coming week is what I would say overall.
Well, mainly good news from you. Is there anyone we missed, Deepak? Was there anyone that we skipped over?
Well, just notably, Mike Evans is probably coming back after the Bucs bye. So a little bit of a boost there. And then Amari Cooper, he's been practicing now, limited practice every day for the past 2 weeks. It's very atypical to do that for 3 weeks in a row and then still miss. So if he practices in standard fashion next week, I would very much think he plays.
Okay.
I need him. I need him, boys.
I need him too.
Yeah. So
I was down to Nick Westbrook-Akina in a league. I was down to Parker Washington, who got blanked in a league because Cooper went out. Tough one. So we need these guys back. Hopefully we'll get them back.
Yeah,
yes, sir.
Absolutely. Deepak, thanks so much for joining us not only tonight, but every single Sunday of the season. Make sure you guys are connecting with Deepak on Twitter at SportsMDAnalysis. Deepak, thanks so much. Have a great rest of your Sunday, and good luck to your Texans tonight, my friend.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Hang out with us, guys. We'll be right back after the drop for our game recaps.
The fantasy season is like running a marathon. Checking your lineup, tracking injury news, making trades, Monday night waivers. You've got to show up day in and day out for 17 weeks. So how do you dominate your league without it feeling like a second job? The answer is My Playbook. Syncing your league with My Playbook is totally free, and it makes winning your league easy. You'll get a personal dashboard that has everything you need to know all in one place. News and notes for your players, bye-week alerts, matchup info, it's all there. Our League Analyzer gives you power rankings for your league and shows you how the experts rate your team. We even have an AI model that studies injuries and tells you which of your players are going to play this week. And for premium users, there's every possible advantage you can think of. Set the lineup the experts would start with just a single click. Get instant waiver suggestions and trade suggestions anytime. You can even put your lineup on autopilot and have us set it for you. So this season, take your time back and dominate your league like never before. Start for free today with the My Playbook app or at fantasypros.com/myplaybook.
All right, let's go ahead and start the game recaps in Germany, where the Panthers beat the Giants 20-17. And I felt horrible about putting the Giants money line in my parlay of the week as soon as this game kicked off. I felt terrible. I had Daniel Jones rolling out in a few leagues as well, where I was quarterback needy. Did not go so well. The Panthers controlled this game for the majority of it, but they let the Giants in the back door in the fourth quarter to force overtime, just for Tyrone Tracy to fumble in the first touch of overtime. Still, Tracy led the way for the Giants with 15.4 fantasy points on 18 carries for 103 yards and a touchdown. It felt like outside of the third quarter, Daniel Jones couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, though, and he's starting to kind of drag down these wide receivers with him a little bit, Boggs. Wan'Dale Robinson and Malik Neighbors held to 10.1 and 10.8 PPR points, respectively. Do you think maybe we were a little bit too high on these Giants wide receivers through the first 8 weeks of the season?
I don't think we're too high on the wide receivers. I think, this offense has been producing for him, specifically Neighbors. I think Neighbors is one of those guys that's probably going to end up being QB proof. But I will say, I don't know how much longer Daniel Jones gets because he's guaranteed a bunch of money. And if they're going to want to cut him after this season, they're not going to want to have him get hurt. So that guarantee locks in. Yeah. We heard them talking about that like before Sunday Night Football starts here. So I think we're going to see Drew Lock at some point here take over for the Giants and be the quarterback. So maybe that makes things better. Maybe it makes things worse. It'll definitely make things different because he is not a runner like Daniel Jones is. So I think Tyrone Tracy is, obviously fumble to lose the game is brutal, but they have found their guy because they're not giving anything to Singletary. Only 17 snaps to 60 for Tyrone Tracy in this game. So they're at least moving that way. But, I mean, maybe we overrated Wan'Dale Robinson a little bit, and I never thought Darius Slayton was good, but I think Neighbors is going to be just fine. And Theo Johnson has seen a nice little tick up recently in the recent weeks. Another 6 targets in this game, only 4 for 37, but at least he's involved.
If your deadline hasn't passed, would you actually look at Neighbors as maybe a buy low candidate, or with the threat of Drew Lock coming in, shaking things up, do you just kind of want to stay away at this point?
No, I believe in Neighbors. So
Okay.
if someone is selling him low because there's rumbling about a quarterback change and not the best performance in Germany, I'm all about getting Neighbors if I can.
On the other side of this game, the Panthers, the wide receivers did not burn you by any means. 7.1 fantasy points for Jalen Coker, 7 flat for Xavier Legette. I think you'll take that at this point with Bryce Young starting. But Chuba Hubbard, he continues to get it done. 169 total yards and a score. Good for 24.9 fantasy points. Miles Sanders was unfortunately carted off in this game. Jonathan Brooks' debut is pending. Where does Hubbard rank rest of season for running backs, you think, here, Bogman? RB9 overall coming into this game, and he could be in the RB5 or better conversation now after this blow up.
Yeah, 28 carries for 153 in the score, and
Incredible.
the 4 catches as well, 32 touches in a huge game. I mean, they've traded away all the wide receivers, and now Miles Sanders is hurt, and they're not activating Brooks yet. So you got to imagine that Brooks is activated next week and starts to get involved a little bit. But this offense is going to run through Hubbard for this foreseeable future because you're not really depending on Bryce Young. You don't want to go back to Andy Dalton. He was tough. So I just think we're going to see a lot of Hubbard moving forward. He's a pretty good asset, low end RB1, high end RB2, somewhere in that neighborhood for sure.
When he just got paid, right? They just paid him, which everyone in the dynasty community I know is a little upset about, who spent, maybe an early 2nd round rookie pick or a late 1st round rookie pick if you're in super flex leagues. But yeah, I mean, that's a tough scene. What do you think for Dynasty this means? Is Brooks still the guy you want moving forward, or is it kind of just a little bit messy of a situation?
I think what we're seeing is they're just trying to copycat what the Lions are doing, right? They have Knuckles and Sonic, right? In the with Gibbs and Montgomery. I think we're going to see that with Brooks and Carolina because they don't have an answer at quarterback right now. Maybe Bryce Young is the guy. Maybe he's not. It's still way up in the air. It's definitely not Andy Dalton. And you have Canales in here. You moving forward. It's going to take a little bit to rebuild this franchise. But I think getting at least the running backs set and knowing, all right, I have 2 good running backs, so we're going to build out from there. I think that's the idea for the Panthers right now.
I don't know if Prime would allow it, but could you imagine Shador in a backfield with both Hubbard and Brooks? I think that would be a pretty good combo.
Yeah. I mean, another quarterback. I just don't think. I think Bryce Young needs to change the scenery. He needs a better offensive line, for sure. But
That'd be nice too.
Yeah. I just I think they're going to bring in somebody new. It might be bringing back Sam Darnold next year. You know what I mean? Like, there are options for sure.
Yeah. Going ahead and moving forward here, the Saints, they continue the new head coach bump trend, beating the Falcons 20-17. Aside from Alvin Kamara, it was MVS who was the hero for New Orleans, catching 3 for 109 and 2 touchdowns. Are we looking at the new Rashid Shaheed in this offense, or did he just get lucky against a bad secondary?
No, I mean, they definitely call for plays like this. And I actually scooped him in a couple leagues when I put Cooper on IR this morning. I scooped him in a couple leagues. I was just, let's see. Let's see what he does in New Orleans. He's sitting on my bench everywhere. Didn't start him anywhere, of course.
Still
but,
good hindsight.
Yeah, I guess it's okay. I mean, I feel like usually the guys I pick up get 1 catch or 1 target, no catch.
Yeah.
But, you can just cut them right after that. So, but yeah, this one worked. And Olave being down probably for the season, Shaheed being out, I think this is something that we can see. Tipton still led in snaps, but they had a crazy rotation. Like, they had 53 snaps here. Tipton led with 29. MVS also had 29. Kevin Austin had 26. So they're getting down the well here in New Orleans for sure. So weird game for them. Obviously everything runs through Kamara first. Taysom had an okay game, 50 total yards. I guess we'll take that. But yeah, MVS is definitely worth a look. Seems like there's not going to be a ton on the wire this week, but MVS is definitely one of those guys.
Him over Tipton, if we are assuming that, Chris Olave is on IR, won't be back for at least a couple games.
Carr's not looking at him. So yeah, I would say MVS is going to be extremely boomer bust and touchdown dependent, but at least he's getting the shots and the looks.
Keeping Taysom Hill on your roster?
I think you can. But again, another guy, and most tight ends are, but very, very touchdown dependent for him. Less than other tight ends, but still pretty touchdown dependent.
The Falcons might have lost this game, but they actually had a good fantasy game for most of their players. Bijan, 29.4 fantasy points. Darnell Mooney had a good day as well with 14.6. Drake London, 17.7 fantasy points. Did this change how we're viewing these players for the Falcons? I feel like it's been these three guys. You can occasionally stream Kirk Cousins, but I don't feel like I really changed my perception on them heading to Denver next week.
They should not have lost this game. They had way more yards. I think they possessed the ball for longer as well. Like, they just didn't score. So weird game. Things like, and they gave up those big plays too, with just a couple of them. You cut those out, this game is lopsided in the Falcons' favor. So just a bad game for them. At least everything was good for fantasy for us. So Kyle Pitts was worrying me there for because I think into the third quarter he only had like one catch for 11 yards again. I was like, oh, here we go with this. But thank God he got back on it here and helped us out a little bit. So I think the Falcons are okay moving forward. Just a weird game.
Okay. In Kansas City, the Chiefs advanced to 9-0, beating the Broncos 19-14, courtesy of a blocked game-winning field goal attempt. I don't know what dark magic Patrick Mahomes did in the offseason or what type of spell Taylor Swift put on this team, but they just keep winning, man. It's crazy. They never cover these large spreads, but they keep on winning. However, I think the storyline of this game is actually on the Broncos side of the ball, where Audric Estime out-carried Javonte Williams 14-1, gaining 53 yards, saw 26 total snaps to Javonte's 16. Is there a new RB1 in Denver, Bogman?
I mean, it looks like it, and if they're going to play this hot hand stuff, then yeah, and McLaughlin all the way out here, because it was 26 snaps for Estime, 16 for Javonte, 7 for Jaleel. So I think it's just one of those things too, where you're facing a very tough front seven from Kansas City. So maybe you just want to give the big guy who can handle the workload more carries early. So I don't know if this is 100% right. I'm definitely going to spend some fab money on him for sure. If we get a lead back, I would say 20-25%, somewhere in that neighborhood. Like I'll spend for him just to see. But I don't know if this is 100% wholly guaranteed. This might just be a weak strategy, a weekly strategy against the Chiefs here. But I mean, this changes like the tides. This changes real quick in Denver. And Sean Payton, he's changed that slot guy a bunch. It was Valey again. It was been LJ Humphrey before. Yeah. So, he makes changes according to the game plan, and this was apparently in it. So, and it was in the third quarter, or after the first quarter, 24, 41 RB snaps. So the first quarter was kind of, we're seeing what's going on. And then second, third, fourth, it was mainly Estime.
Would you buy low at all on Javonte? Because there's people who are going to think, hey, he's out. He's the running back too now.
I would in Dynasty. I don't know that I would in a redraft, just because. Okay,
too much in the air. Rather just pick up Estime. Gotcha.
Yeah, and honestly, I'll pay for Estime. I don't want to start him. I want to put him on my bench just in case he is the starter and I need someone because of an injury or a bye week. But I'm not buying him with a ton of enthusiasm, thinking he's going to lead this team in rushing the rest of the way. It's just this is the direction they're going now.
How do you feel about Courtland Sutton? Since his donut back in week number 7, he has scored 17.1 fantasy points, 23.3, and now 19 points this past week. He feels like he's the one guy you can trust in the Denver pass catching group. I know at different times we've tried to place some touchdown bets on Valey. I know we've also tried to make Troy Franklin a thing, but it feels like Courtland Sutton is kind of the real deal right now.
Sutton is the best offensive player that's not Bo Nix on this team. So it's good that we have seen Bo Nix start to rely on him and really trust him and, put the ball up and let him go make a play. And we're seeing that from Russ and George Pickens as well. So sometimes these young guys just need a little bit to adjust. And after that donut, they have adjusted. So we're not eating donuts anymore. We're eating steaks with Cortland Sutton. We like it.
Would you be buying or selling him?
I'd be buying Sutton for sure.
Like a low end wide receiver 2 price tag? Is that kind of where you, because I put him somewhere right between 20 and probably 25 rest of season for
Yeah,
me.
I might put him a little higher than that, mid wide receiver 2, but there's
okay
wideouts. So yeah, that's probably about what the cost is going to be to get him.
For the Chiefs, it continues to be Travis Kelce and Kareem Hunt you're starting each week after they scored 20.4 and 17 fantasy points respectively this week. Mahomes borderline start every single week in the right matchup. And if you need to flex Hopkins or Worthy, you can, but I don't think you're like running to the door to do it. Does that sound about right for how we're valuing these Chiefs rest of the season?
I think I like Hopkins a little bit more than you do.
Okay.
Just because he's increased. He had that big week last week, right? He had Patrick Surtain this week. So I think moving forward, Hopkins seems a little more trustable than other pieces, especially, the running backs here. Kareem Hunt remains the man, but we know, Pacheco's coming back at some point. Deepak earlier this year said, I don't know if he's going to be 100% when he comes back. So,
right.
It's looking like the end of November. So you still have a couple weeks with Kareem Hunt for sure. Don't know if I'd look to trade him either, just in case Pacheco either doesn't come back or is delayed and they want to hold him out for the playoffs or whatever it is. But I think Hopkins can be a much more reliable target. Hopefully next week. We'll see.
What do we do with Worthy? Like, I mean, I felt like, especially
he's a desperation play right now.
I felt like when Juju went down, I was thinking maybe he would play that more slot role, that low A-dot role, and it just doesn't seem like it. It feels like they only want to take some higher A-dot, deeper shots down the field with him right now.
Didn't even have a run in this game either, which he usually has. So, yeah, I mean, you can drop Worthy if you want. He's also just a desperation play. Another guy that I put in when Cooper went out and gave me nothing. I should have started MVS.
Yeah.
So, just one of those things. I think he's in a different offense. He'd be much more used, but they just, they run the ball a lot. They throw to Kelce a lot. They traded for Hopkins. So he's fourth fiddle. So
I still have Juju on a couple IRs, and I'm not giving that up either. I think he'd come back and still play that same role. Like, no one's really playing that role. They have McCole Hardman in that role. He's getting a couple dinks and dunks each game, but not really doing anything with it.
Look, I've gone out on my limb for Juju before, and it snapped, and I fell to my death. So I'm no more limbs for me and Juju. No, thank you.
Okay, fair enough. I did want to remind everyone before we keep it moving with the game recaps that you should be signing up for our Josh Allen's Bills helmet giveaway for the month of November. If you want a chance to win this free helmet, courtesy of our friends over at pristineauction.com, all you need to do is head to fantasypros.com/contest, complete the form, and either A, download the Fantasy Pros Draft Wizard app, B, leave a review for the podcast, or C, follow us on X, Instagram, or TikTok at Fantasy Pros. The more actions you complete, the more entries you're going to receive, and we'll be announcing a winner right here on the podcast. So if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to subscribe and turn on those notifications so you can be alerted when new episodes are up and to claim your prize. All right, Boggs, let's head over to the Turnover Bowl, where the Bills beat the Colts 30-20 in a game that had 6 turnovers. No Keon Coleman, no Amari Cooper as well. So it was a game for Khalil Shakir to continue to do his thing. 6 for 58 on 10 targets. James Cook also got going, scored 15.5 fantasy points. Any takeaways for the shorthanded Bills in this dub?
Man, I was annoyed that Ray Davis didn't get more touches, right? You would think
3 carries, right?
Yeah. Okay. You have your top 2 wide receivers down in this game.
Mm-hmm.
The Colts run D is bad. Josh Allen threw 2 picks. Let's maybe run the ball a little bit more. And they did with Cook, 19 carries for him, but 3 rushes for Davis. And Ty Johnson had the 3 catches for 32 yards. So
I hate Ty Johnson. I mean, I'm sure he's a wonderful person. I'm sure he has a great family. I'm sure he's a great locker room guy. Probably brings everyone, donuts.
But just put him in Dallas, where he would be the best running back on the team. You know what I mean? Like, now he's stuck. He's vulturing a little bit away from Cook and keeping Ray Davis from getting some work. So I was a little annoyed by that, but obviously Josh Allen with the 2 picks, not the greatest day, but ran one in as well. So he was okay. And then, we're going to get those wide receivers back hopefully soon. But Kincaid went down as well. So if those guys aren't coming back and, Dawson Knox is available, I think he's going to see a decent amount of targets next week.
keep betting the Khalil Shakir reception prop. It was
Yeah.
5.5 today. I bet it. He had 6 receptions. I was a little nervous. I sweated it out a little bit longer than I wanted to, but I think I'll continue to back that each and every single week. And I think we can maybe start giving up on the dreams that Joe Flacco was going to be start worthy in one quarterback leagues. I hyped him up on this show. I hyped him up on my other program, so I apologize about that. He did complete 26 of 35 for 272, 3 touchdowns, but he also had 3 interceptions. A couple of those bad luck, but Bogman, I don't know. Like, do they go back to A-Rich at this point now that the season's almost out of hand?
I mean, A-Rich is a abject disaster. Like in that first quarter, I was like, man, Joe is throwing 2. If he throws another one, maybe they go back to him in this game. Like, he was looking miserable, but he came back. He threw a couple touchdowns. He looked okay. So, I mean, he's not the long-term answer. I think that's pretty clear. So if they keep losing games, yes, he'll get in there because they'll just say, hey, look, now it is time now that we're out, it's time to learn on the job. So go out there and make your mistakes and learn from them and all that stuff. But when you're still in the hunt, you don't do that. So I think it was the right move to go to Joe. But he looked bad last week. He looked bad this week. So I would say he gets one more game to look tough before they go to A-Rich. But I was more annoyed that Goodson got the vulture touchdown because I have so many shares of Jonathan Taylor.
Same.
So that was super frustrating. But Adonai Mitchell looked decent, had a bunch of targets. Josh Downs looked good. Alec Pierce caught a touchdown in the absence of Michael Pittman. So, Flacco's not great, but I don't think we would be getting these other pieces performing well if it was Anthony Richardson still out there. So for fantasy, I think we want them to stick with Flacco for now.
JT 100% of the RB rush share. That was kind of cool to see. And then AD Mitchell, as you brought up, I think he's someone from the dynasty lands we're more looking at. I don't think we're still going out and picking him up from a redraft perspective, but it was good to see him catch all 6 of his targets, showing some efficiency there. That's great from a dynasty perspective, gives you some hope once some things open up there. But I don't think we're still rostering him or Pierce, even if Pittman continues to be out.
I mean, if Pittman's out, I'm more interested. It has to be a deeper league, of course, but I'm more interested. But
more in AD than Pierce.
Yeah, I think Pierce is more big play dependent. He's the touchdown dependent. And Mitchell was on the field a bunch today, so I think they want to lean towards the youth and get that guy some experience as well.
Okay. In Jacksonville, Sam Darnold and the Vikings beat Mac Jones and the Jaguars 12-7. Shout out to Andrew Erickson for maybe the lock of the week with the under in this game. I mean, talk about a no sweat bet. I was feeling very good about that. So appreciate the Undertaker on that one. Bogman, what are your thoughts on the Minnesota pass catchers after this game? It feels like it's getting a little more convoluted. TJ Hawkinson had 9 targets, limited Justin Jefferson to 548 on 9 targets, and Addison just 2 for 25.
Yeah, I'm hoping this is just a bad game, but what we might be seeing is, and I think what used to happen was Sam Darnold would get to a month in and then turn into a pumpkin. Now it's like maybe 10 weeks in. He's starting to turn into a pumpkin a little bit. So I'm just like a touch worried about Sam Darnold and his production moving forward.
3 picks today.
Yeah, it just looked bad against Jacksonville too. Not have a good secondary. It made some real tough mistakes as well. So I hopefully he's going to get better. And they're playing against the Titans next week. So that secondary is pretty bad, but we thought that against Jacksonville as well. I thought this was going to be a pretty decent game for Darnold, and it just wasn't. So I'm maybe worried about Jordan Addison with Hawkinson coming back, but I'm fine with Jefferson having a bad game. Or a below average game, not even a bad game, but a below average for Jefferson game. And Hawkinson looks good. And that's, was kind of the fear for these other guys. We know Jefferson's going to get his. We know Aaron Jones is going to get his. After that, Addison was looking pretty good. Jalen Naylor was catching some touchdowns every once in a while, but it seems like Hawkinson is becoming more and more the guy every week.
Addison feels like he's in that same Xavier Worthy tier. Like you're kind of hoping for a big play and a touchdown every single week for him. So
yeah, I think I would rather have Addison than Worthy just because of the high volume passing offense that Kevin O'Connell runs in Minnesota, but not by much because he's just not getting the looks.
Yeah. For the Jaguars, Mac Jones looked so bad in
Ooh.
this one. 14 for 22, 111 yards, 2 interceptions. Can we start anyone from this team with him at quarterback aside from Evan Ingram?
No.
The backfield feels terrible. ETN pretty much had it to himself today. We didn't mention it with Deepak, but Tank Bigsby in and out today of the lineup, and ETN still just 5.3 points. Brian Thomas Jr., his worst game of the season by far, 2 receptions for 12 yards. Can we still flex BTJ, you think, if Mac Jones is under center?
BTJ is the one. So, I mean, Mac Jones just looked miserable. And we know the Vikings defense makes things hard on good quarterbacks. We saw CJ Stroud get, beat up in that game against them. So I think that, with Trevor Lawrence back, everything will probably get a little bit better, which is weird to say because it's not like Trevor Lawrence has been looking great so far this season. But Mac Jones was tough. ETN had 30 of 44 snaps. Bigsby only had 10 because of his injury. Still just not good production. It's hard. This whole offense is bad right now. So, yeah, I think you're right. The initial look is that, Evan Ingram's the only guy you want to start. If you have to start BTJ, okay. That's the only really acceptable guy. I think I'm still leaning more towards Bigsby, but how many times have we seen the Jaguars do this where, ETN comes in and then he leaves, Bigsby comes in and then he leaves and then he comes back, but then he goes out again. Like, I don't know what's going on the bench over there with these injuries and stuff. They're handling them very strangely in Jacksonville, and I just don't like what I've seen. So I think this backfield is becoming a lot like Denver. You know what I mean? They're going to do a hot hand. It's going to be different maybe from game plan week to week. I just really do not like having to start a guy from this team right now. They're bad.
It's not fun. It's not fun at all. It's really sad, especially because ETN was a league winner last year, and now he's just kind of gone, probably as low as he's ever been in fantasy since he's been a starter. Kyle saying in the chat, I think he makes a good point. Jags might look a little bit better when they aren't facing a Vikings defense. Bad matchup for sure, but
yeah,
Mac Jones isn't someone who necessarily inspires confidence, I would say either, Kyle, right?
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, and hopefully we get Trevor back and everything looks a little more normal and we can count on Brian Thomas Jr. as well. But even if Lawrence comes back, that's the only guy I'm giving a big boost to.
Yeah. Kyle also saying congrats on the engagement, Seth. Thank you, Kyle. I appreciate it, man. Saturday.
Seth, I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah. It was a great day yesterday. Penn State won. The bets didn't hit, but the important bet hit.
Well, the big one did.
Yes.
So that's what matters. We like that. Congrats,
absolutely.
Man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Kyle, as well. Looking at our next game, it is in Chicago where the Patriots moved to 3-7 with a 19-3 win over the hapless Chicago Bears. This O-line has turned back into mincemeat for Chicago. 9 sacks on Caleb Williams today. 6 targets apiece for Rome, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen. Still nobody crossed the double-digit fantasy point line. Has Shane Waldron and this toasted O-line made this where we only really want to start Swift each week on this team?
Yep. I mean, it's tough too. I'm a huge DJ Moore fan. I love Rome Odunze.
Same,
but,
dude.
I mean, it's not just the O-line. Caleb Williams is holding on to the ball too much. He's making terrible decisions as well. So, honestly, Bagent might be a better option right now. I don't think they're going to do that because that might kill Caleb Williams' confidence and all that stuff. But it is miserable in Chicago right now. 16 of 30 for 120 yards. That's terrible. With this receiving core and the way that Swift has been playing, he's been playing excellent football over the last month. So
yeah,
I don't know what the issue is. It's obviously Caleb in the play calling, but he's got to get that ball out faster. And if he doesn't, you got to put in somebody that will and just let him learn for a little bit. They keep losing games because this offense is anemic. The defense is okay. So they held the Patriots to 19 points. Probably, I didn't look at time of possession, but I bet it was lopsided in the Patriots' favor as well. So it's not good. The offense is not healthy in Chicago at all. So it's tough to start DJ Moore. It's tough to start Keenan Allen. You really can't start Keenan right now. Cole Kmet, another guy we'd love to see get involved as a tight end. We know he's a good pass catcher. They can't do anything. So, yeah, Chicago is abysmal. It's a complete mess there right now.
I don't get what you watched from the Seahawks offense last year and was like, yeah, I want to hire Shane Waldron. And like, same with the Raiders who hired Getsy.
Oh, Getsy was
like,
such a joke.
why there are, I mean, you and I could start a list right now of offensive coordinators in college that would be better.
With Shane Waldron, maybe it was, he learned it in Canales, Geno Smith got going, right? Like,
True.
Maybe a little bit that Getsy. I don't know.
Yeah.
That one was really shocking to me when that happened. So, it's just they're going to clean house after this season, I think. And, Cliff Kingsbury might get another head coaching job in Chicago and be with this boy, Caleb Williams, who he was OC for at USC. So we'll see. But I do think a change is going to be made at the end of the season, but I don't think it's going to come before then. And it's going to be tough to try to start these guys from the Bears.
Yeah, like give me the big Zamboni, Andy Kotelnicki, give me Chip Kelly. I don't care. Like I'll take any of these college coordinators over these guys right now. I can't stand Shane Waldron. I mean, the ADOT for Keenan Allen is exactly what it was for JSN, and that was like the one worry all offseason that he could have a five flat ADOT. Hey, it's come true. So
yeah.
Any winners or losers for New England? It feels like you could still flex DeMario Douglas if you need him 9 fantasy points in this one. Ramondre's still a guy in a running back needy landscape you can throw out as your RB2. I'm stashing Drake May a lot of places, but outside of that, it's not much else.
No, it's Ramondre, really. And that's it. I mean, Bourne was just out of the rotation. Baker got more. He had 4 snaps and Bourne just didn't get any. So don't know what that was all about. Behind Stevenson, it's been split between Hasty and Gibson. So Gibson is no longer a viable option at all. Yep. So not that he ever was really, but it's a mess here. So yeah, Douglas gets looks. Don't like him. You know what I mean? It's just this offense is still not very good, but they did enough to beat the hapless Bears this week. So weird, the Panthers winning games and the Patriots winning games. It's like y'all are just screwing up your draft pick here. I don't like it. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, Stevenson's really the only guy, and Drake May in like a super flex because of the rushing upside that you can really start from this team.
If you want a really, 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 really deep target, potentially, if you're in a 16-teamer, a 20-teamer, or maybe you're in the Scott Fishbowl like me and your only good wide receiver was Chris Godwin and then Chris Olave, and they both are gone, I'm looking at Keyshawn Boutte. I think he could.
He's on the field a lot.
Yeah, and 6 targets in 3 straight games. So I think he could be a sneaky ad. Again, not in a 12-team league. This is a deep league only. I think he should be rostered in dynasty leagues as well right now, just because he's out there, he's running routes, and like he was a guy at LSU, at least his early days at LSU. We thought he could be someone, right?
Big recruit for sure. Yeah, and like I feel like Douglas, Boutte, and Bourne were Spider-Man memeing all like who's going to get 3 for 33 this week. That's kind of what it was. So now the Bourne's out of the rotation, and but you would think like you just drafted Polk and Baker. Why not put these guys on the field?
Javon Baker's a ghost out there. He's like seen like what 10 snaps all year. It's been terrible.
It's been bad. So you would think that this is why I don't want to get too invested into this, even though that they're playing, and you make a great point, Seth, that they're 6 targets in a row. That's production. You're getting something here. So but I just think at some point the script is going to flip and it's going to be like, all right, enough of that. We know what we have there.
Yeah.
Let's get these guys out on the field and see what they have, So I think we're going to get the turn at some point. Doesn't mean it doesn't always happen in year 1. So we could easily see, Boutte be productive. So yeah, I mean, he's a guy you're dropping someone at the end of your bench. You're throwing $1, you're throwing $2. And if nobody else bids on him, hey, great. I'll take him in his 6 targets. That's fine.
If you're trying to decipher between this New England wide receiver room and if there is any value, I suggest checking out our Fantasy Pros waiver wire assistant. You can actually be using this both on the Fantasy Football My Playbook app or at fantasypros.com/myplaybook to instantly view suggestions on who you should add or drop. So maybe the tool Bogman, maybe you'll say, hey, Seth's crazy. Don't go anywhere near Boutte or any of these New England wide receivers. Or maybe there's some value there. It's a great tool. I've been using it all season long to help me in my various leagues. So make sure you guys are as well at fantasypros.com/myplaybook or on the Fantasy Football My Playbook app. Let's move forward here with Tampa Bay. and the 49ers. The Niners failed to cover. Of course, I bet on them. So who's surprised by that one? But they did hold on for the win, 23-20 over the Buccaneers. Purdy was throwing the pigskin all over the yard in this one, 25 completions for him, and it came on for 353 yards and 2 touchdowns. Ricky Pearsall, Jawan Jennings, Debo, Kittle, all double-digit fantasy points. Is this going to be a regular thing, you think, now that CMC is back, or is this just a great matchup here against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
I mean, it's a good matchup for sure, right? But I mean, the offense was outstanding in this game. And by the way, CMC, no rest for the weary at all. We thought, oh, okay, how are they going to do this? Are they going to ease him back in? Nope. Kyle Shanahan will never ease and let up with CMC. He says he's going to. He's not. 56 snaps for CMC in this game. They played 64. He was off the field for 8 snaps, coming off of missing 10 weeks or 9 weeks.
They don't need to do that. They have George Mason. They got Garendo. They got
this
guys.
game was close though, because Jake Moody kept missing field goals, 3 misses, and we saw Debo being a real great teammate after that as well. So don't know if you saw that, but yeah, CMC was awesome. Dude, Jennings is looking like, a potential wide receiver 2 moving forward here. 11 targets in this game. Pearsall was great. Debo had his rushing opportunities and Kittle got in the end zone. Like when it runs on all cylinders, it is an amazing offense. And that's what we saw today against Tampa Bay.
Yeah, hopefully it can continue for San Francisco. They are playing Seattle next week, and that's not really a defense that's scaring me either. It's better under McDonald, but still not someone I'm scared. Like, I'm probably still rolling out.
Maybe better coming off a bye, but still not good.
Yeah. I'm like you said, I'm still rolling out Jennings probably every single week. I'm rolling out Debo, Kittle, and Pearsall's like a flex, like a decent flex right now. Is that kind of how you see him?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, who would you rather start right now, Seth? Would you rather start DJ Moore or Ricky Pearsall?
Probably Ricky Pearsall, to be
I know.
honest with you.
It's not a crazy answer.
He looked good. That was a nice touchdown. That was a nice touch. That's what we saw from him in college, so I'm not surprised.
My worry about Ricky Pearsall was like, well, when is this dude getting on the field, right? We have Brandon Ayuk, we have Debo Samuel, we have George Kittle, we have CMC. So Jawan Jennings is third, and he's a clear third, right? When the season started. So I didn't know when Pearsall was, especially after getting shot or, before the season started, like, when is this guy going to see the field? Well, we've had all these injuries in front of him, and Ayuk going down for the year has really opened up things for him. And he's getting, he's getting more and more usage every week. So guy looks good. Great pick by them. With
that being said, would you maybe trade Ricky Pearsall high in Dynasty? And what do you think you could get for him?
I don't think I would. I understand that. It really depends. It's 2 good weeks, right? So I think if he finishes out the season well, that's the time to trade him.
Okay.
Because we will have Ayuk coming back. They extended him. Debo's getting paid. Like, everybody's getting paid there. We know the pecking order. So I think if he finishes out the year, great. Then maybe I want to trade him. But at that point, maybe Jennings is traded. Maybe they work a deal to move Debo because of this stuff that's going on in the locker room. So there's just a lot of ifs and buffs, but I do not want to trade Pearsall right now.
On the other side of this game, Baker Mayfield really struggled. 18 for 29, 116 yards, 1 touchdown. I can't really blame him. He's thrown to a bunch of Jags out there. Do we keep Mayfield on rosters and hope things get better when McMillan and Evans return? He was the quarterback too for the first half of the season. I just can't tell if this is a beaten down team right now, Bogman, or this is a sign of things to come.
No, they need the bye, and they need Tristan Wirfs. And it's not a good thing to have Wirfs go out in the middle of, a Nick Bosa pass rush. So, it's a tough game here for the Bucs. They need the bye real bad. Hopefully we get them rested up. And as Deepak said, Mike Evans is going to come back, and he will really open up the whole field for everything. But when you don't have that field stretcher, that threat to go deep, everybody can play up. It hurts the run game. It hurts everything. So once Mike Evans comes back, I think we see this offense open up a little bit more. So I'm not, first to ditch Baker, but it's a bye week. And if you're looking for someone else, he's not going to play, you want to stash someone on the from the wire, then yeah, do it.
Okay, let's go to my upset special of the week. That was never in doubt at all. And it is where the Steelers beat the Commanders 28-27 in the nation's capital, which had a really calm week. Very chill, nothing out of the ordinary down there in DC. But just a great game for the Lurs here, Bogman. And it felt like it was going to fall through, courtesy of a drop fake punt, a goal line fumble by Jalen Warren. But the Steelers ran 75 plays, dominate time possession, 36 to 24 minutes. They also held Washington to 242 total yards. First disappointing game of the season, really, for Jaden Daniels. 8.6 fantasy points, but nothing to complain about if you're an Austin Eckler or Terry McLaurin manager, Boggs, as they both had huge days.
Yeah, I mean, McLaurin, really just torched Joey Porter. He was good. So, that is the opposite of DJ Moore, where, like between these two guys, it's like, all right, we both get new quarterbacks. Everyone was all on DJ Moore. No one was on Terry McLaurin. I have him rostered all over the place. So, he's just a good wideout. So, nice to see him staying productive. It hurts when Robinson is out for this offense. So that didn't help. Also, we got the benefit of the doubt on a spot, I feel like, near the end of that game. So
yes, we did. Thank you.
Definitely helped. And then Johnny Newton, a rookie being a rookie, just making a rookie mistake, right? Just not on the field early in the season. But yeah, for Washington, Noah Brown had 2 enormous drops. He could have had a touchdown and probably way more production in this game. So that's frustrating, but I think this offense is going to be okay. They face the Steelers coming off a bye with a really good pass rush. It's the first time that Jay Daniels really looked human. So I think he's going to be fine moving forward. That now they got another test for this rookie because they play on Thursday night against Philly, who just destroyed Dallas's offense. So that's going to be another tough one, but McLaurin is good. Hopefully Brian Robinson is up. I think holding him out of this game is maybe so they can play him on Thursday, right? So we'll see if he comes back as well.
I'll tell you what, man, I've been on record on the IBT podcast, on this podcast as well, talking up Noah Brown and more just the opportunities had. 7 targets in this one, but like you said, very disappointing. But he does have some splash plays in him. We saw 3 wide receiver 1 performances from last year at Houston. With that said, though, can you imagine this offense if they can go out in the first round and get like a Trey Harris or a Mecca Ibuka? I mean, oh man, I don't want to look too forward to the draft, but I'm already like getting these things in my head, and I'm liking what I'm thinking. Looking at the Steelers side of things here, Bogman, 3 touchdowns for Russ, including the game winner for old Mike Williams. But I want to talk about George Pickens, who's averaging 18 fantasy points per game in the past 3 games with Russell Wilson at quarterback. Has Russ's cooking, home-style cooking, unlocked this guy?
Yeah, it absolutely has, because, coming into the NFL, that was the big thing about George Pickens is, he doesn't get separation. He doesn't need separation. A 50-50 ball is an 80-20 ball for him. So those rainbows thrown up to Pickens are, amounting to good things right now. And same thing for Mike Williams. That's why you go and you get a big hulking wide receiver like Mike Williams, is because Russ is going to throw it up and let these guys make a play. And they both did. And this Pickens catch was just ridiculous. I mean,
oh my gosh.
Insane.
Yeah.
I still find myself being really annoyed with his attitude on a lot of stuff.
100%.
And sometimes the effort on the run blocking is not always there. But in terms of fantasy, you're not worrying about that stuff. You want that 7 targets a game. One of them is going to be big, and he's always got a shot for the end zone. So Pickens is awesome. A little worried about Najee. Obviously, Deepak, kind of laid that out, that he's looking fairly 50-50 to play this week against the Ravens. It's a tough matchup anyway. So Jalen Warren would be the guy. We'd see a little bit more of Cordero Patterson. It's not a good matchup, though, because the Ravens have the number 1 rush defense in the NFL. So we did see them get picked apart by Joe Burrow, though. So not a good secondary. Jalen Warren maybe would catch a couple more balls. Mike Williams hopefully plays way more in that game, because Calvin Austin looked terrible. Wasn't even looking for the ball a bunch of times.
He at least caught on to that one big ball we needed him to catch on, and he got rocked a little bit in that catch.
Yeah. And then he went out because of it. So
they brought Mike Williams in for the game winner too.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. So we'll see what goes there. Hopefully, I think Big Mike will be up, but it might be a slow roll to get him out there. I mean, we saw a bunch of guys that get traded, not even play this week. So
rest of season, McLaurin, George Pickens, Cortland Sutton. How do you rank those 3?
Ooh, okay. I would go with probably McLaurin, Pickens.
I'm in the same way, and I think both of them are like wide receiver 2s to me. I would say Pickens is more of a mid wide receiver 2, as we noted earlier. I'm a little bit lower on Sutton than I think you are, but McLaurin to me is like the epitome of a high end wide receiver 2, like right in that 12 to 15 range.
I have these guys on all of my teams. I especially
you have a tight, Bogman. You have a tight, my friend.
I do. It's take running backs early and feast on these mid-round wide receivers.
Absolutely. Before we keep it moving, I did want to remind everyone to join our Fantasy Pros Discord community. If you want to chat with other fans and get access to our exclusive AMAs that wind up on our podcast feed, head on over there. We've got a new schedule for the rest of the season. Joe, the Welsh, and Boggs, yes, this Boggs, they're live on the Discord Mondays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Also, the Welsh and Erickson Thursdays at 2 Eastern. And then Fitz and Boggs at 5 Eastern on the third Tuesday of each month. Come get your questions answered and be on the show at fantasypros.com/chat. Boggs, that Monday show that you guys do is one of my favorites because I mean, we hear some wild things. We hear the grievances. We hear people talking some smack on league mates. It's always a fun time over there, man, in the Discord.
Yeah, it's a good time. Yeah, we allow the airing of the grievances. So if you're upset about something, at which judging from the chat, it's going to be a lot of upset Nico Collins managers.
Yeah,
here.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, folks. Yeah. I mean, it looked like he wasn't going to play, and then it looked like he was going to play, and then one dog goes one way, one dog goes the other way, and this guy says, "What do you want from me?" That's a good fellas for you. But yeah, just a tough one. But you can come air your grievances tomorrow. We will be listening.
And if you need a spot play, DeMarcus Robinson, I think tomorrow night against Miami's not a terrible one.
Keeps catching touchdowns.
Yeah, I sat Keenan Allen for him today. I'm trying to pick him up on the waiver wire tomorrow. So as long as no one outbids me, I'm going to have a little DeMarcus Robinson. If not, I might be rocking Jonnu. So we'll see how that goes. Let's move into the afternoon slate. Only 3 games on it, which was kind of weird for once. But the Chargers, they get it done 27-17 against the Titans. They also cover in this game for those betting on those Los Angeles Chargers. Justin Herbert, kind of a down game, only threw 18 attempts in this one. We saw a lot of Gus Edwards for the first time. That was kind of the big takeaway for me watching this one. 10 for 55 for Edwards, 15 for 50 for J.K. Dobbins. Is this going to get messy all of a sudden, or do you think this was just, hey, we're playing the Titans. Let's throw out Edwards. Let's give Hassan Haskins a little revenge here as well.
Yeah, I think, Vidal just, gone. Didn't play in this game, so don't need to worry about him anymore. But, I mean, it was still only 14 snaps for Gus Edwards, right? And it was 39 for J.K. Dobbins. So this is still J.K. Dobbins' job. They just got up. All the 3 of these games were pretty boring, Seth, in the second half.
Oh, yeah.
Blowouts. I mean, this was probably the closest game of them and wasn't really that close. So I just think we saw more of the other backs near the end of the game because, this is Gus Edwards' first coming back. We know what he is. He's the Gus bus. That's all he does. He's running straight forward. That's it. He's not going out there doing anything fancy. Haskins vultured the touchdown, which everybody hates, especially people rostering either one of those guys. But probably all Dobbins people are not very happy with them giving Haskins that carry.
We should have known that
it's a Michigan guy.
Well, yeah, it's a Michigan guy. Jim Harbaugh wants to feed him against his former team. Like that would have been the perfect anytime touchdown. What? We got to remember that. Well,
I mean, he had 5 snaps and 2 carries. So, it's not like we were and Vidal had been up the last couple weeks. So, it just did not look great. So, this offense, McConkey he had the 2 for 52. He had 1 big catch. Quentin Johnston, if you had to start him, luckily he got in the end zone. Again, not my favorite guy, but he keeps getting in the end zone. So, dude, he's touchdown dependent.
He's improved a lot. He was so. I mean, I know comeback player of the year is really only for injuries at this point, but QJ's got to be on that list, dude.
Good God, no.
He was terrible. He was so bad as rookie.
I can guarantee you he's not a thought. He would have to he'd have to have a huge last 7 games here for him to be a thought for that. I mean, come on. Let's not go that far. Maybe I'm just a hater, but come on, Seth. Let's not go that far.
I actually don't think the rules would even allow that because they actually just redid the rules because Flacco won it last year. So I don't even think he would be in consideration because they want someone from injury or something like that. But,
right. Overcoming something besides not having hands. Right. Yeah, I get you, Seth. So,
I
but
love how I try to give it a compliment. We still like backwards bury him.
no, I mean, come on. I got to defend my spot here. But yeah, I mean, they just didn't need to pass 14 completions for Herbert. They didn't need
Yeah.
to pass the ball that much. Will Levis was too busy giving it to him. So, yeah, I just I don't know. This was a weird game for the Chargers. I think Dobbins is going to be more useful moving forward.
And was it kind of just a weird game for the Titans as well? We saw Tyjae Spears actually outgain Tony Pollard on the ground. 7 carries for him, 9 for Pollard. Pollard was involved in the passing game once again, 4 receptions, 19 yards. Was this kind of just a weird thing with, Tyjae getting a little more looks here?
No, and this is why we talked about it when when Pollard was looking good, that it might be a pretty decent sell high for him a couple weeks ago, Seth. And when we look at the snaps, 29 for Pollard, 15 routes, 9 carries. Tyjae Spears, 25 snaps, 13 routes, and 7 carries. So they were split pretty down the middle here in production. So Tyjae Spears and Pollard, they will ride with a hot hand. Neither hand got really hot today, so they just kind of split. So I think this is going to be what we see moving forward a lot from the Titans is this split. Now, Tennessee, the Chargers are tough. I think the Steelers, they were saying during the broadcast, the Steelers still scored the most points against the Chargers this year. I don't know if that's right, but 20 points.
Yeah.
That's the most that they've given up. That defense is outstanding. So tough game. They'll get better. Will Levis looked better than I thought. I thought we were going to get that Cooper Rush game out of Will Levis in this one and maybe see Mason Rudolph come back, but he looked better than I anticipated, and they looked a little bit better. Calvin Ridley at least had a good game. So
2 tutties.
Yeah, so for Tennessee, it's tough. Pollard is still like a nice flex start. Moving
same with
forward.
Ridley, probably.
Yeah, same with Ridley for sure. So, but yeah, I do think this is going to be more split than anyone rostering Pollard is going to like.
Mad Scientist in the chat saying he picked up DeMarcus off waiver wire, so I'm playing him instead. JSN and Tillman on bye, unfortunately.
Dude, I had Tillman on bye. I had Cooper get hurt. I had Brock Bowers out. I had Ken Walker on bye. This was an ugly week for my fantasy teams. Not great. And I think I'm hovering around 500, but there's a couple I've been not wanting to check.
Yeah.
So I haven't checked them yet.
If DeMarcus does well for you, Mad Scientist, on Monday, you can thank me. And if he doesn't, just forget I said anything about it. And that's why we love the Fantasy Pros community over here. No, I'll take the egg on my face if I do get the L on that one. Let's move forward to Dallas, where it's just an ugly beat down 34-6. The Eagles come away with the victory in this one. We saw a little Kenny Pickett at the end of this one, and Jalen Hurts, 2 touchdowns for him on the ground, 2 touchdowns for him through the air. He continues to be a difference maker down the stretch for fantasy football teams. AJ Brown, 5 for 109 as well. Dallas Goedert found the end zone. But Devonta Smith, the letdown was coming for someone, and it was Devonta Smith this week, 2 for 14. What the heck, man?
I mean, he's a little gimpy coming into this game, and this was a blow. We saw Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, I guess they only needed 20 passes. I guess. That's
fair. So you combine those two things. I'm not worried about Devontae. He's still a Slim Reaper, still a Heisman winner. So he's still a good player. So I'm not worried about him at all, or really any part. Johnny Wilson vultured a touchdown. Jalen Hurts got his 2 rushing touchdowns. Could have given one of those to Saquon for a couple of my teams. That would have been nice, but it's just the way it's going recently. But yeah, Philly looked very good. And they have the reason they brought in Pickett is because they got the Thursday night game.
Yes, sir. Looking at Dallas, it has been it's tough. We already talked about CeeDee Lamb. He's kind of coming down our rankings a little bit with the news that Dak might not be around for the rest of the season after getting that surgery that Deepak outlined earlier in the program. So I think realistically, you're rostering CD, you're rostering Rico Dowdle. If you need a tight end, you're rostering Jake Ferguson. I'm good with dropping Jalen Tolbert at this point. It's a nice story, 30-year breakout, but 5 targets, 3 for 14. I'm good.
Weirdly traded high for Jonathan Mingo.
Yeah, Well, they had him high in their draft evaluations, just like Trey Lance. You got to trade a 4th round for him, right? He was a 2nd rounder 2 years ago, Bogman.
I guess. I don't understand what you do. I mean, he can't win a job on the Panthers. So what are you doing? Maybe. And I think a lot of coaches do this, and this is why we shouldn't be so surprised when things like this happen. I think every coach will be, I can fix him.
Yeah.
I can fix him. That's why when you see a big flaw for a player and they get drafted high, it's like, well, he's got so many of these skills. We're going to work this thing out. They all have that confidence. And if they didn't have that confidence, they probably wouldn't have that job, but it just doesn't always work out. So.
Agreed. If you're in super flex leagues, I wouldn't mind, putting $1 or $2 a fab on Trey Lance. Not that I think he'll be any good, but he's got rushing upside, right? I mean, even in this one, 3 carries, 17 yards, only threw the ball 6 times in his limited attempts. But yeah, I still think Trey Lance in super flex leagues, maybe kick the tires on him in dynasty. Someone's still rostering him. Like he's in all the dynasty leagues I have. I've been trying to kick the tires on him for a little bit now. It's like, hey, would you do, the worst guy on my bench for Trey Lance, the worst guy on your bench? So I don't know. I still got a place for him.
Yeah,
he's still in there.
The thing with Trey Lance, I don't think I'm as Pollyanna on him as you are, but
Yeah.
the thing with Trey Lance is that he just didn't start that many football games in his collegiate career to come in and then, have this huge role with the Niners. And it seems like they didn't want to pick him. They wanted Mac Jones, and they ended up taking Brock Purdy at the end. So it was a weird situation for him to start in. It seemed like management made this decision when the coaches didn't want him. And then Cooper Rush beat him out in camp. So it was like, okay, well, we know Cooper Rush is at least better than Trey Lance. And then after 10 drives, yank, see ya, Cooper. But McCarthy's sometimes slow to make permanent decisions. It may just be, hey, we couldn't protect Cooper, so we're going to, bench him, and Trey Lance is going to be out there. So I just, this was an ugly game in every sense of the word for Dallas. There was really nothing good outside of Rico Dowdle kind of reclaiming that starting running back role, and Zeke fumbling to really put an exclamation point on it. So that was probably the only thing good coming out of this game for Dallas. Defense looked okay in the first half, but they were just exhausted because this offense was going 3 and out and turning the ball over. So I expect improvement in Dallas moving forward. It's not going to look this bad every week, but we see what the bottom of the barrel looks like, and it's not good. It's CeeDee Lamb still going to get a lot of targets. He had a ton in this one, just didn't get a lot of yards. He's going to improve. I think everything has to look a little bit better because it can't be this bad for the whole season, but it looked real bad.
It did. Speaking of looking bad, my frisky Jets, they lose 6-31 to the Arizona Cardinals in the desert. And I hate
to see it.
Hands up for me. I bet the Jets money line. I bet the Garrett Wilson over. Yeah, worst calls. That and the Georgia money line. Worst calls of the week for this kid. So I'll take the egg on my face. The Cardinals weren't anything especially electric, I didn't think, but they were just efficient. Like Kyler Murray, 22 for 24, 266 yards.
I don't know if he got it, but they were talking about how he was 16 for 16 at one point. He was approaching the Cardinals franchise record.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Or it was 16 in a row. Maybe it wasn't 16 and 16, but it was 16 in a row, and he was approaching that. I don't know if he got to it because I was watching the red zone, but efficiency was absolutely the name of the game for the Cardinals in this one for sure.
5 for 54 from Marv and 1 touchdown as well. I know people are still low on him. Maybe a little higher after this, but I know my brother owns him in my one league, and I've been trying to sell him a sandwich and a paper bag for the last couple weeks for him, and haven't got him yet. But I'm still going to keep trying.
Have you thrown in a couple Lucy's? Maybe that'll work. So we'll see. Maybe a ice cold 40. Look. Connor was great. Only the 33 rushing yards, but he scored
5
a touchdown,
80?
and he had 80 receiving yards. Trey
That's
Benson
amazing.
looked good. There was not many parts of this offense. McBride with 4 big catches for 71. Elijah Higgins got involved. But really it was the opposite story on the Jets side. Everything looked good for the Cardinals. And did you see Kyler Murray get his head nearly taken off as well when Quincy Williams hit him?
I think I missed that. Yeah.
If you didn't see that hit, his helmet flew 15 yards. It looked like that old Blitz video game. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
One of those unbelievable. I could not believe that Murray got back up after that one. Now they did run the ball on the next play, but he did. So he broke the Cardinals record for consecutive completions. Thank you, Nelson. But he got his clock cleaned and got right back up and went right back to passing all over the Jets. So the Cardinals are in a good spot right now.
Yeah, and would you be rostering Trey Benson in redraft 12 teams, or do you think him getting 10 carries, 2 receptions was more just, hey, game script, we're up, let's throw the rookie in there?
They're mixing him more in now. So if I had I might take him over a guy like Jerome Ford. You know what I mean? Jerome Ford hasn't been doing anything. They're giving everything to Nick Chubb. He's just kind of in there for the dirty work.
Yeah.
So I would put him over. If we're down to that area, you had Antonio Gibson hanging on your roster still, whatever, someone that's getting nothing right now. Yeah, dump him in, stash Benson. And if anything happens to Connor, God forbid, then you have the Cardinals' next guy.
And I think just to put a bow on this game, the Jets, I think you just have to hold serve, right? I mean, bad game for Garrett Wilson, 5 for 41 on 6 targets. Very inefficient game for Devontae Adams, though, 13 targets, 6 receptions, 31 yards. Brees's receiving work saved him, but I feel like if you have these guys, it's kind of just holding tight, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough right now. They don't look good. Aaron Rodgers is going to be more disinterested as the season goes on, and they're not winning games. So
at least another 4 years till the next political cycle. So we should be on that one.
But yeah, it's tough right now for the Jets. So Garrett Wilson is still a great wide receiver. Devontae Adams had 13 targets. He's still going to be involved.
Yeah.
Brees Hall is pretty everything proof. This was a meltdown game from every sense of the word for the Jets. They went on the road and were awful. Just nothing good came of this game for them.
Yeah, hopefully it's a rebound for them soon. I still believe in those frisky Jets. They are playing Indy next week, so potentially a bounce back. We'll see what happens, but just hold tight. Better days are ahead. And Boggs, that's going to do it for us tonight on the Fantasy Pros Fantasy Football Podcast. Until next time, please like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel and podcast feed. Plus, download the My Playbook app. For Scott Bogman, I am Seth Woolcock. Thanks for watching. Take care, y'all.